We will be using the third-party system called Election Buddy, a vendor, where secret ballots will be created and sent directly to county committee members. The results will be calculated by the system and generated once the election is closed. So, appreciate that question. It's a good one and a valid one. So, thank you to those who emailed us. And as the questions come in, we'll continue to respond accordingly and to the best of our ability. What we'll do tonight, I just want to remind everyone, you have to hit 0, leave a message, hang on, question. And I want to be clear, like between myself and the parliamentarian, we're going to do our best to try to answer questions tonight if we can. If not, we're going to make sure that we follow up and work towards getting an answer between now and the 6th. And if you're going to make a statement, we appreciate your thoughts and insight into this process. But I want to be clear, we have a finite amount of time, and we just ask for everyone to be concise, to the point, and also we're going to hold this to a 2-minute time limit. So, and the parliamentarian will be looking at that. So the first question and comment comes from Rich Zangar, Chairman Zangar of North Brunswick.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to voice my support for the change in this bylaw, especially for the 4-year term. We in North Brunswick during the primary, we typically do have our convention a little bit later, and we did get caught right in the beginning of the pandemic. The electronic signature system really was ineffective, didn't work. And quite honestly, we put some of our people at risk, going on, knocking on door to door, trying to get some signatures, myself included. And with the age of my committee and the experience, I'm just not willing, to risk their health going into next year. We don't know what's going to happen. Many experts are saying, we need to plan for a resurgence in late 2020 and 2021. And I agree. I think your proactiveness and responsibility to this issue is really going to help protect our seniors. As many of us know, as we start to reopen, our seniors are still going to be asked to stay home. And we just don't know what the next 6 months are going to bring. So I appreciate yourself and the bylaws committees being proactive to make sure we can address this change now, so we all, as a don't get caught with our hands down, so to speak, like I did in this last year. So thank you for your foresight. Thank you for putting this meeting together.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. At this point in time, I'd like to call on the Vice Chair and a member of our Bylaws Committee, Iris Rodriguez, Vice Chair from Perth Amboy.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm on the Bylaws Committee, and I really went over this, and we even had a meeting last week with our entire, 60% of our membership, and we are all in agreement with this change. One of the reasons is, for us, we have a young committee, and they are in the process of learning, and a lot of them felt that the 4-year term would give them that much more incentive to learn and to be really involved and do something. And on another note, our committee gets challenged every single year. Every 2 years we get challenged. We spend X amount of money that we have to get. We have to all dip into our pockets to fight this challenge, to serve on our committee. So we feel very much in agreement with regard to the 4-year. And we are going to, with regard to to extending my term or my chairman's term, that we'll take on the local level. But we are in agreement with all, and the gender neutral is fantastic for us because we have a hard time, and a lot of times we have 2 good women, a lot of times we have 2 good men from the same district, and we want them on. And right now we have a few vacancies that we could fill out, but we could fill in right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon from Highland Park, right? Maurice?
No, it's
I'm sorry, it dropped. So we're looking for Committee Woman Naila Caruso, please.
Yes, that's me. Naila Caruso calling from Highland Park. I'm curious about the decision we made to turn retroactive, and I was wondering if it had anything to do with, I think his name was Judge Savio's decision in Cape May when the local Democratic Committee attempted to cancel the next election. I'm not sure if that picked up or not.
The short answer is no, it did not affect our decision making on the way we proposed the change in bylaw. I would just say this, man, if you give me a moment. Bill, if you're on the call, would you like to chime in on that?
Yes, Chairman. There's a pretty significant difference. I followed that case pretty closely, and when it was first filed, I didn't know the background of it. But once I heard that it was done by the executive committee without resorting to the entire committee, was when the judge ruled against it. But the judge's decision basically says that it says that his decision would be different if it had been voted on by the committee itself, not just by the, I think in Atlantic it might have been by the chairman, and Cape May have been just the executive board, but there was no vote of the committee. That's why, when we were looking at all these various changes, one of the first things the chairman recognized is whatever we're going to do here, we're going to do by committee, not by just one or a small group of individuals. So I don't think there's any impact of Atlantic. The decision that Judge Savio rendered in Atlantic Cape May is substantially different than what we're proposing here or what's being discussed here.
Thank you, Bill. In fairness, though, I would like to just say that, and I won't take a lot of time because we want to get the questions, but through our calls with the state chair and our colleagues from other counties, we were under that impression that was a proper course of action. I think the state committee is actually working with them on trying to represent them. It's neither here nor there, but so we're working under that rubric that we have the understanding that whether it is Cape May, Gloucester, whatever, those chairs were going to work to do what they did best and have to work through the circumstances as they understood it. So, thank you. At this point, I'd like to call upon Maurice Waller from Monroe. Thank you, Maurice, for joining us.
I want to thank everybody for being here and joining us, even though we're hunkered down here in our bunker, and we're just waiting for the germs to go, the Nazis to go away. So I agree with a 4-year term. I think it's, even though I'm a senior, I teach at Rutgers and I talk to students all the time, and they're young people, and I think that we have to give a chance to the younger people. They need that time to learn, and they need the time for experience for the older folks to show them the way, and maybe to have their own way at the millennium. So that's my feeling.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, and stay safe, that's for sure. At this point, I'd like to call upon from McCutcheon, John Wiley. Mayor, if you will. Former Mayor Wiley.
Yes, I'm here. I've been involved in the Democratic Party even before I could vote, so I've been involved since 1967. I was there in 94 when some of these institutional changes were made. I've supported candidates who have won primaries or lost primaries, who have been selected by the committee and failed to get committee endorsements. But I think always we've tried to keep the process close to the public, and the way to do that, I think, certainly is that we're going to have a broader selection of people if we remove gender requirements. Certainly having a 2-year term rather than a 1-year term. Basically, 2 terms is the shortest period of time that we have of any public official, and I think it certainly makes sense for 2 years. People have indicated the problems with the unpredictability of COVID. There's also an expense factor for the County Board of Elections. But I think the thing that I think people haven't emphasized is, look, this will fall on of the 4-year cycle, the year that there are the fewest public races. And therefore, it will be a time period where committee people, can, get to the distracted voter and emphasize why they want to run and what kind of services they want to provide to the party. So I think, in the interest of trying to
sorry. You may have dropped. I apologize, but thank you for participating, and thank you for your insight, and thank you for your service for all these years and your continued service. Sorry about that. Letting everyone know and keep in mind. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Ambrose.
Hi, it's Catherine Ambrose from Highland Park. My concern is I was voted in for a 2-year term. I'm perfectly happy to serve that 2-year term. I would really prefer it if you made this change starting at the next election cycle. In other words, not skipping the end of my 2-year term. Second part, gender neutral. That's lovely. Does it prevent 2 people from the same household holding committee seats? Because that is something that Highland Park worked very hard to break up a number of years ago. And it really opened up the breadth of representation. And I think it's a very important thing to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time and joining us. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon from Monroe, Judith Perkis. Judith, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been hearing people in the community being concerned about the changed retroactive extension of terms and the delay of the 2021 election. Could somebody please say once more why the fact that the Republican committee has changed their vote impacts on ours? I don't quite understand that. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question, and stay safe, and thanks for participating. A couple things. One is, the Republicans opted. We're on it at a different cycle than when the Republicans run. They were running this year. We had an off year. What that would do is, by them going to next year, that would put us on the same cycle. In effect, what that does is it then puts out there in one primary cycle nearly 12 to roughly 1,300 or so individual ballots that will be going out. So it is my opinion, and I spoke to municipal chairs before we made any type of decision or concern on this. Our thought was A, not to run with the Republicans if possible when they're up, and B is that elections are extraordinarily complex now, and we have seen that from the governor's office last year to legislative action that has been taking, and it has put an incredible strain on both the clerk's office and on the back end, the Board of Elections. And the changes in the thought process has certainly got ahead of the infrastructure. In fact, there were some issues last year during the Democratic primary that had actually have to extend the period for putting in petitions. What we were doing is just anticipating and trying to be proactive and not putting our county committee into that same position. I've already explained also why we didn't want to have the election during the uncertainty of the COVID issue. Bill, do you want to add anything again to retroactive on Title 19, or that you think makes sense?
No, Sherman, I think you covered it. I mean, the idea was, the basic, as I recall this discussion first bubbling up, was what are we going to do next year? First, we have the confusion with the ballot, and then we have where are we going to be? Are we going to be? Is the world going to be quote normal, or are we going to be kind of the way we are right now, hunkered down? And what problems could that bring up? And then the idea was, did we have the ability to, like everyone was doing this year, did it make sense to not run next year and just extend the term to 23, and then from there on keep it at a 4-year term, which makes sense for a lot of the reasons that a lot of people have articulated. So, but no, I think you covered it.
Thank you to both, and a great question. We appreciate it, and be safe. At this point, I'd like to call upon from South Brunswick, Barry Nathanson. Barry, thank you for joining us.
Yes, how are you, Mr. Chairman? I'm calling to support the changes in the bylaws. I've been a county committee man in South Brunswick for 25 years. Overall, going back to when I started in 1950 in Oxford. So I've been a county committee person better part of 40 years, including chair in Manalapan. And it makes sense to make the changes, and the main one, Mr. Chairman, is we've always been on alternate years with the Republican Party, going back to when I first started, and it limits the confusion, limits the problems at the polling place and at the clerk's office, and it makes sense to alternate, and by doing that, you have to expand the term. Also, it never made sense for you to be only a 1-year chair. There's nothing else, even on the local level, that's a yearly type of situation. So it makes sense to make the county chair and the officers 2 years. So I support what David Bender and his committee did.
Barry, thank you very much, and stay safe in South Brunswick, and thanks for your giving us the time. At this point, I'm going to call upon Michelle Tackage from Middlesex Borough. Chairwoman?
Good evening, everyone. Michelle Tackage, Middlesex Borough. I want to thank you, first of all, for everything you do for us. As many of you know, Middlesex Borough is in the process of rebuilding our entire party. Moving the committee person elections will definitely be in the best interest of Middlesex Borough, as it will allow us the time needed to rebuild. Also, I believe being able to have 2 committee men or 2 committee women will be in the best interest of Middlesex Borough, as I think it will be easier to fill my open seat, which I've been having a problem with. So I think it's going to be a lot easier for me to do that. So again, I want to thank you and hope everybody stays safe.
Thank you, Chairwoman. We appreciate that, and thanks for all your efforts. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon from Piscataway, Stacy Berger. Thank you for calling.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks to both of you. Unfortunately, David didn't read my whole statement or answer a bunch of the questions I had. I'm glad to see there's so much support for the lawsuit that the Central Jersey Progressive Democrats brought about the gender ID and the 2 committee women and committee men being able to serve together. It's interesting that the lawyer on this call made a completely different Title 19 argument to the judge previously on that case, and I would be happy to talk about that at length if there were more time. But since this is one of the most undemocratic and ill-informed things I've ever been involved with, I'll keep my comments to this issue of the 4 years. If Congress can serve for 2 years, committee people can serve for 2 years. The woman who was on the Rules Committee who said that you get challenged all the time and this would make it easier for you to not have to do that goes to the heart of the issue. People all around our county want to participate in the democratic process, and by reducing the number of times that they can run and the availability of the elections for people, many of whom move around our county, and as a growing county, we know that people are moving in, and we would like them to be able to participate.
All right, if Stacy's able to, that was by accident, or if she dropped, I don't know. But if Stacy calls back in, we'll get you back on.
I'm right here.
Okay,
I haven't
go on.
gone anywhere. I'm right here.
Okay, go ahead.
There are people who have tried to call into this call, who registered for this call, and did not receive a phone call. So this entire process is really undemocratic and incredibly ill-informed. Not everyone got the email. Not everyone got the hard mail letter. The fact that you all are changing the bylaws in the middle of a pandemic when some people are dealing with loved ones being ill and potentially being ill themselves is stunningly in bad taste and undemocratic. The fact that people were elected to serve a term and that you are proposing to change that term themselves because they wish to not have to be challenged again more frequently is something we would expect from Republicans. And if it happened from a Republican organization, we would absolutely decry the fact that it is undemocratic. This is one of the least democratic things I have ever seen or been involved in. And I cannot strongly stress enough that this does damage to the Democratic brand and the party that many of us are fighting for. It's unfortunate for the woman who said that people challenge them every time they run. That is what democracy is about. We didn't get here because people decided that they should have a position. We have to run and be chosen. And if people don't want to be involved in the democratic process, there's a whole other party for you. And I strongly suggest you go there.
Thank you, Stacy. I will just say this. Probably shouldn't. To call this the least transparent endeavor, in my opinion, is just factually incorrect. We take great pride in Middlesex County in being one of the most transparent and open. Again, these are the bylaws from 25 years ago that were created by Harry Pizicki. And if you don't know Harry Pizicki, he has been a champion for open and transparency. It's how we were able to gain one person, one vote. And the fact that we are actually doing this, look, the beauty of this, and I'll go on to the next, because it's about letting the people speak, but I can't let certain things go unsaid. The fact that we are having this conversation tonight with nearly 400, 350-something people are calling in. It actually makes it more democratic that you do it virtually, because people, if we were to go and do this in a room, we just call for people to get around. So we're offering this to do it virtually and do it by telephone. Second to that is, if people don't agree, you can vote against it. And that's all we're asking is to participate. These are the bylaw changes that we suggested, that the bylaws committee suggested, and here we are today. So I appreciate your participation. I appreciate your opinion, of course, but I disagree with the transparency. At this point in time, I'd like to call on Margaret Pemberton, please. Margaret, please, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Chairman, and hello, everyone. In the last few weeks, we have all needed to reconsider how we complete the various tasks of our lives, keeping in mind everyone's safety. And this is the main reason why I support the proposed change to a 4-year term. And the only other thing I wanted to add is, as a person who handles the petitions in East Brunswick for I don't even know how many cycles, I think it would be a vast improvement to the administrative task. and I think I will strongly support these proposed changes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Margaret. I appreciate that. Just for clarification, I just want to be clear that we are at 500 people who are participating on this phone call tonight, just for clarification. At this point in time, I see our friend Mayor Womack, Francis Womack is on the line. Mayor Womack, would you like to join?
Hi, Chairman. Thank you for letting me participate tonight. If any organization chooses to extend the terms of its members, it has to happen at some time. And the question to consider is whether anything in the changes impedes transparency or accountability. And although these changes extend the length of terms, they do nothing to ultimately impair in any way any Democrat's ability to challenge and seek a committee seat or office. The question is whether extending the terms is or is not a good idea. We live in a time when the primary opposing party, the Republicans, has demonstrated a willingness to engage in voter suppression generated by actual voting laws that exist and by disinformation. By providing more realistic terms, the changes that are proposed provide a more reasonable time period for strength through cohesion in our party and the ability to formulate and effectuate steps necessary to ensure that we can address the needs of our constituents and effectively counter the strategies and actions of the Republicans during upcoming elections. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it very much. From Old Bridge, I'd like to call upon Paul Turchin.
Thank you. I'm Paul Turchin from Old Bridge. I'm speaking for myself and not for the organization, as we never took a formal vote on what I'm about to speak. First off, I agree with almost everything that's being proposed by the Bylaw and Constitution Committee, except for the four-year county committee term. And the reason is a little bit different than some other people have stated for their opposition. In Old Bridge, we do not have all of our seats filled, and we often find it difficult to fill those open seats. What ends up happening is someone writes themselves in during a primary election, or we appoint somebody in the interim term to fill an unexpired term. Someone might seem interested. In the majority of cases, that person then ceases to become an active participant in the organization. Will oftentimes struggle to receive responses to communication. We can't get a letter of resignation from them if we wanted, so that we could get another committee person in the seat. Inevitably, we end up having to wait until their term expires, and we can purge that person from membership and get somebody in who might be more active and more involved. And I feel if we have to wait 4 years instead of 2 years, that's a burden on our local municipal organization. It will stifle our growth, and we'd rather not have that happen if we can do so. Thank you.
Well, thank you for calling. Some of those things also actually could be addressed through your by addressing them at the local level through the bylaws, but thank you for participating. At this point in time, I'd like to recognize from Perth Amboy, Lois Lane.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm from Perth Amboy, and I agree with the proposed MCDO constitutional changes. This will bring us up into the 21st century because we have to be safe.
Thank you, Lois. We appreciate that. Thanks for joining us. And again, everyone, stay safe. At this point in time, I'd like to call from Piscataway, Catherine Levesque. Catherine?
Fellow Democrats, and thanks to everyone who's participating in this. I just wanted to share a different perspective on what Stacey Berger was saying when she pointed out the need to attract new people into the democratic process and into organizations. I don't know if everybody who's interested in helping out the Democratic Party is as shy as I am, or at least as I was in the beginning, about campaigning for myself. But I have to say that if I had to run for an office myself, I probably would never have gotten involved. As it was, I started helping out our local Piscataway Democratic Organization as a volunteer when my husband was drafted to replace a committee man who could no longer serve. And I just started coming to meetings and getting to know people and learn the ropes and find out more about what was going on. And over that 3-year period, I became more and more comfortable so that when the committee woman in our district moved away and couldn't serve any longer, I was appointed into the position. And I think that really we should encourage new people that are considering running in opposition instead to, come in and join our meetings and get to know us and find out about the opportunities and the diversity that we offer. And that way it's less adversarial, it's more collegial. And I think what we really need as Democrats is more unity, and that would be a good way to build it. So as far as people being appointed not serving out their terms, I guess you have to be careful who you appoint. But anyway, I just wanted to share that I have experience and different ways of welcoming new people into our party. And again, thank you all so much for all that you do for us Democrats and the things that we care about the most and the vulnerable people we try to protect. God bless you all and stay safe.
Thank you for your perspective. You stay safe as well. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Councilman Jorge Diaz from Carteret. Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Councilman Jorge Diaz from Carteret. I would first like to thank the committee on their work to recommend needed changes to our Constitution and bylaws. I'm calling to support 2 specific changes outlined here tonight. As many of you know, the Democratic Party is the party of inclusion, and any changes to our governing document that reflect a gender-neutral requirement for potential committee candidates should be fully supported and embraced. And it continues to align with our core values of equity and inclusivity. I'm also supporting extending the committee term from 2 to 4 years during this unprecedented time and the impact the current crisis has had on our economy. This is certainly the opportunity to amend a practice that puts an undue financial burden on our local party resources. In Carteret, in particular, we see very little change in our committee seats, and therefore believe this proposal would save party resources, which can be better spent to support candidates in contested races. Again, I want to thank the committee, and I ask that you accept my unequivocal support for the proposed changes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilman. We appreciate it. From Cranberry, I'd like to call upon Susan Getz. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
We can.
Okay. I wanted to just make a quick question. In Cranberry, we've been very successful at growing the Democratic Party and looking at the voter registration list. There's a lot of movement to the Democratic Party. We had a lot of enthusiasm to get on the county committee this last election. So I'm very optimistic going forward. But my question is, has the bylaw committee considered, instead of us voting on this now, putting this as a ballot question on the 2021 primary ballot and seeing what the voters think? If the voters want our term to be 4 years, let them decide, and let that be effective 2023. So the people that are running in 2021 are running for 2 years. They know they're running for 2 years. You're voting for them for 2 years, and then we will know the next time it's a 4-year term. Has that been considered, and is that doable?
Thank you for your question. I'm going to turn it over to Bill in a second, actually. But again, I just want to stress we operate under different rules than the elected officials who have to serve under state statute or the act of Congress. We are under Title 19. So. Some of the things that have been raised over the last couple of minutes, they just don't apply. But what I'd like to do is ask Bill to clarify and answer your question directly. Bill?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. There's really 2 issues. There's the legal and the practical. First, the legal is the only thing that will go on the ballot, on a primary ballot. Like we couldn't put a party question on the primary ballot. As I think somebody said at the start, it might have been the parliamentarian, talked about, there's case law that recognizes that the county committee serves as the trustees for the Democratic Party in the county and the state, the state committee people, the same thing. So it really is, it's a county committee decision as to what the term should be, and that actually is. Although I don't know that it's necessarily applicable, even that is addressed in the statute. It says that the
term of the committee or the interval by which the committee serves needs to be addressed in the bylaws, and the way to amend the bylaws is through the process we're going through. The practical effect, and really what caused this to bubble up in the first instance, was the whole idea about, what will an election look like next year, and will we even be able to have one? There's so much uncertainty, and that question will bubble up as petitions are being gathered, and as we're trying to get the machinery of the election going. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose. I mean, the initial underlying motivation, at least as I understand it, was, what are we going to do if next year we have, the Republicans on the ballot, we don't know what's coronavirus going to look like, what's going to be the impact, are we going to be out and about, or are we going to be in the same position we're in today? So by having anything on the ballot next year, the whole purpose was not to have anything on the ballot next year, at least in terms of those things which we can control, which is the county committee.
Bill, thank you. And thank you for your participation. We do appreciate it. Stay safe tonight during this pandemic. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Dave Lotsky, who served on the bylaws committee from East Brunswick and Channel.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to serve on the committee. I would just like to assure everyone in this that many of the concerns that were raised here were actually vetted by our committee. We realized that the ballot last year reflected that a committee person would serve only a 2-year term. We also realized that there were communities with contested committee races that would be delayed as a result of our recommendation. However, there were, at least in my opinion, far more compelling reasons to recommend the change. Since the election last year, we've been faced with a pandemic, a lethal and prolific virus that has caused us to be locked down in our own homes, and when we leave, to wear masks and to engage in social distancing. A virus that has caused our state to virtually shut down economically for 6 weeks and counting. Medical experts that are highly regarded, unlike our current president, do not know when it will end or how it will end. The primary election has been postponed. We do not know if the primary and/or general election will take place as scheduled, or if mail-in ballots will be the only ones counted. We do not know whether or not this virus or a mutation thereof will appear next winter. With all this uncertainty, who wants to promote the signing of thousands of in-person petitions in January or February of next year, especially when 80 to 90% of the county-wide committee elections are not contested? In Brunswick, we have a mayor and 2 council seats that are on the ballot this year. We were very fortunate that our 3 incumbents are seeking re-election, and therefore were able to complete our petitions in February. I don't know how I could circulate petitions in the face of this pandemic had I waited. I submit that these signatures on petitions is not a real long-term solution to the problem. So for me, when I weighed the pros and the cons, most of which cons and pros were expressed tonight, and those that were expected in our parliamentary vendor's letter to our committee, I overwhelmingly conclude and recommend to my fellow committee members that we extend the term of our committee to 4 years. That extension would allow us to maintain an election cycle for committee positions that coincide with the same other officers as it's been for years. So, in conclusion, I fully support our recommended changes without reservation. I encourage everyone else to also vote yes next week. Again, stay safe, everyone, and thank you for participating.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks for participating on the bylaws committee. It was greatly appreciated, and stay safe to you and your family as well. At this point, I'd like to call upon Chairwoman from Jamesburg, Gary Lewis. Chairwoman.
Thank you, Chairman McKay. I would like to say I'm in support of the bylaws committee changes for this year. I'm really supportive of the 4-year term for our committee people. We currently have a very active committee in Jamesburg. Our committee people work very, very well with council. And I think that if we keep this at 4 years, it will help build the party locally, which is our long-term goal in Jamesburg. I thank you very much for your hard work with the bylaws, you and the vice chair and our bylaws committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'd like to call upon from Highland Park, Robert Holtzapfel. Robert, please. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Yes, I'd like to, hi everybody. I'd like to encourage everybody to vote no on this, but I oppose it. I oppose it because of extending our 2-year term to 4-year and not holding the election in 2021. I think it's politically tone deaf not to realize that there's a division in the Democratic Party today, that we have the progressive supporters, if you will, who are going to be enraged by not having the opportunity to run in 2021. I want to thank everybody for your work. I support all the other changes. I do not like the idea of us running for 4-year terms. I think it adds vitality to have to run every 2 years. And I have complete confidence in Elaine Flynn and our Board of Elections to conduct this in a professional manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Rahesh Mehta. Rahesh?
Yeah. Good evening. That changing members to 4 years. Members are usually elections only, and elections every 4 years. And I support that one.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call on the councilwoman from Monroe, Miriam Cullen. You're available? Council President.
Certainly in support of gender equality. I believe it is long overdue, and I am very pleased that this will happen. I believe that change always brings discussion. I believe that extending the terms will provide stability. We need that. I've listened to many discussions about what will this virus do, but we know what we can do. We can act in a responsible manner. We can extend the terms so that we do not have people needlessly getting petition signed. We can support all Democrats, and we can elect people that we need to serve us. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate that very much. At this point, I'd like to call upon Michelle Lombardi from Edison, please.
Michelle Lombardi from Piscataway.
Piscataway, Councilman, I'm sorry. I confused you.
That's okay.
Lombardi.
All right, that's okay. Good evening, everyone, and thoughts and prayers to everyone during this difficult time. I am in support of the 4-year term for our committee people. First of all, first and foremost, it is of utmost importance to ensure the safety of our committee members. So I think that's the main priority. Secondly, it is becoming a little bit harder to recruit people with the amount of work involved. So if moving it to a 4-year term instead of a 2-year term can make it a little bit easier, it might be a little bit easier for people to make that commitment. And thirdly, it will be a cost savings to many of the local Democratic committees. So I am definitely in favor of changing it from a 2-year term to a 4-year term. Thank you.
Thank you, Council, and I apologize again. I'd like to call upon Brian Tobin, Chairman Tobin.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for participating tonight. I always love open discussions. Also, a lot of things I'm going to say have already been said, so I don't know if the benefit or a detriment to everybody. In 1992, the last time the question passed.
So don't make noise, okay?
Next So 1992 was the last time Metuchen changed its bylaws, and my executive committee and we've been looking at the gender non-binary issue for a couple of years. And we're glad to see that the Middlesex County Democrats are one of the first county organizations to address that issue. So it makes it feel like we're going to be able to address that in our updates that we're going to be doing relatively soon. I represent a small town. We were able to get our petition signed. We had to do it in a unique fashion that required hand sanitizer boxes on people's porches, witnessing every single signature. We were able to get it done, but it made a lot of us very uncomfortable and made a lot of us very nervous. So it makes I am not speaking because we have not had a vote on behalf of everybody, but in terms of the process and getting this done, it is something that concerns a lot of our individuals. I'm in favor of the stability and consistency of a 4-year term also as well. And I encourage everyone to vote for it. And I thank Kevin and the committee for bringing this forward for us all to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and take care of yourself. At this point in time, I'd like to call the Right Honorable from Woodbridge, Chairwoman Tish Coughlin. Chairwoman.
Hi, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for staying on the call and all of your comments. As a member of the Bylaws Committee, it's very interesting to hear all of the different responses from everyone. Just want to say that the Bylaws Committee took this on. I was over 25 years old and really needed to be brought into the 21st century. We went through many different scenarios. What really resonated the most with us in terms of the 4-year term was the idea that next year we don't know what it's going to be like. The Spanish flu was much, much worse in the winter when it came back than it was in the spring. And because of that, we don't want our committee people out on the streets looking for signatures. I had a call with my committee last Monday, and they were very much supportive of the 4-year term, both for that reason, also for young people who will have the 4 years to learn the job. So for those reasons, and obviously as a member of the committee, I support all of the changes we've made and hope you will vote yes next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'd call upon from New Brunswick, Chairman T.K. Shannon. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate everybody's time this evening. I want to thank the Constitution and Bylaws Committee for all their hard work. Chairman, I've read the proposed amendments. I've listened to tonight's dialogue, the discussion, and I support the amendments, the changes wholeheartedly. These changes are long overdue. I think they'll help to grow the organization, and quite frankly, it's the right approach in light of what we're dealing with now. So I lend my support to the changes, and I thank you again, Chairman, and the organization for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call upon from East Brunswick, Sean Taylor. Committeeman.
Yes, good evening, my fellow Middlesex County Democrats and friends all. I've been a committee man in East Brunswick for 41 years, including a couple stints as chairman. And I've heard all the arguments tonight, both pro and con, and I want to thank all the people who laid their arguments out before us. And I guess I come down on one issue. A job of a committee person, as I see it, is twofold. Elect Democrats, number one, and build the Democratic Party, number two. And after hearing all of the arguments and reading the amendments, it's clear to me that supporting these changes, the gender-neutral change, but most important for me, the 4-year term for committee people, I think will accomplish both of those goals. Chairman, I want to thank you as always for all you do for the party. And I want to thank my good friend David Bander and all the people on the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. This isn't an easy job. I think they did an outstanding job. Everyone, please stay safe. And together we're going to win many more elections as Democrats here in Middlesex County. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Stay safe. I'd like to call upon also from Plainsboro, Deborah Brett.
Hello, thank you very much. My question was more of a clarification. I heard a discussion, and I've seen it in the written materials about the burden that would be caused by having both the Democrats and the Republicans run for their respective committee positions in the same year. I understand that there's a push to go to more vote by mail than going out to the polls. But if we're having an election in a primary in June, and the voting machines are already out there, and the election judges are already out there, what's the cost burden involved in having both the Democrats and the Republicans vote in the same year?
Bill, would you like to jump in on that?
Chairman, yeah, I was going to say, if you want for me to address this, Chairman, I'm happy to.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. To have, we're going to have a primary one way or the other. It's going to be, and the fear is that it could be not fear, but the reality is it may be entirely vote by mail, which requires substantial stuffing of envelopes, putting the county committee aside. Adding the Republican county committee adds one layer of complexity because you have to have an individual ballot for each individual district in the county. Add Democrats and you double that, and then adding onto that the vote by mail, having to stuff all those envelopes is just creating the ballot itself, and then having to stuff all those envelopes just gets to be almost Herculean in terms of the effort that it requires. I heard some people saying that that they thought this might be a questioning of the county clerk. I don't think anybody has more faith in the county clerk than most of the people on this call. It's not that we don't think she's up to it. She's certainly up to it. The question is, should we be putting that kind of burden on the office? Or is there an alternative? And that's what has been recommended here by the Constitution and Bylaws Committee is that there is an alternative. We can not have the election next year, carry it to 2023, extend the term to 4 years, and not only lessen the burden next year, which is at this point really unknown as to where we're going to be next year, but also for the extending the term to 4 years for the reasons expressed pretty eloquently by a lot of the people that have participated tonight. So that's the reason why we're there is going to be a primary, but it just exacerbates it to a lot of people's view an unacceptable degree by requiring county committee election next year as well.
Thank you, Bill, for the enhanced answer, and thank you for calling in as well. Jack.
Everybody, I'm glad to hear everybody's comments tonight. I sat with my wife and kids eating dinner, listening to every single comment, and it's wonderful how so many people speaking out. This is a situation where we have an unstable, chaotic time. We have an unstable president. We have an opponent in front of us who's not trustworthy and unstable, and we need stability as a party, and these moves show stability and help us be unified as a party. So I support it 100%. I think stability is the most important thing for the Democrats at this point, and I think this is a good move and a positive thing for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it as always, and stay safe. I just want to let everyone know we've actually gone over the allotted time that we were hoping to use, and there's a lot of calls. As I said, we've had over 500 participants for those who have called in, and we appreciate that. If you have any questions, please provide them to us through email, and we will work to get that to you. Again, the email address is parliamentarian, P-A-R-L-I-A-M-E. I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. P-A-R-L-I-A-M-E-N-T-A-R-I-A-N @mcdonj.org. Parliamentarian @mcdonj.org. www.nj.org. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice.
Maybe my mother trying to call and let me know I need to come home soon. I beg your pardon. Excuse me. What I'd like to do at this point in time is, before we go into the closing, just one more call. She's been waiting and she's been a participant. She's the sheriff of Middlesex County. Sheriff Millie Scott. Sheriff. All right. We seem to have lost the sheriff, but we appreciate that. So, for all those who have participated, who have been on hold, hopefully you were able to glean a lot of what it is we're intending to do, what it is our goal is, and a lot of the insight that has been provided has been helpful. And again, I think this has been a rather methodical, meticulous, and exhaustive exercise to get to where we are, and hopefully to get where I believe we need to be as an organization. Look, I've been doing this now as chair. Beatrice has been doing this as vice chair right at my side for the last, we're going into our 7 years. And, you know, this is something we take very seriously. The health and welfare of this organization and the people that comprise the health and welfare of this organization, the county committee people, are always at the forefront. Yes, we have changes that we need to make that speak to where we should be in the 21st century. Yes, we have changes that we need to make sure that the language speaks to where we should be as a structure, as an entity, to make us a stronger and more balanced organization. But I would also say this too, that at the end of the day, we need to do what's in the best interest of the organization. And we don't take this lightly. This was not something that, again, we just woke up in February and said we want to do. This was after a phone call from our state chair and his staff who had said, you guys need to do what you think is in the best interest of the county. And I understand, I'm not naive, that there are people who may not agree with this. And that's the beauty of this organization. And this is the beauty of how we work. We work through our chairs. Our chairs communicate with the county committee. We try to be as inclusive as possible. We bend over backwards. That, contrary to some thoughts, but that's okay. That's who we are. But at this point in time, I'll just say this: we are all Democrats, and that's important because this is not a means or a vehicle to be divisive. In fact, contrary to that, what we're trying to do is to unite and make a stronger organization. At the end of the day, we're based on whether or not we win or lose. And this is what we believe will help us to become a stronger organization going forward as we go into presidential year, gubernatorial year, and so forth. So with that being said, I do want to thank everyone for participating. I want to thank everyone for their patience too. This is not an easy thing to do virtually. Actually, I think it does allow, again, for greater accessibility and greater participation, that you can just pick up the phone and join us. So with that, again, any further questions, any thoughts, any insights, please email us. Next week, we will open up the meeting as we would any other. And with that, we will go right into a voting session by which we'll be following up to notify everyone of how that will work. Our office will be reaching out and reminding everyone along the way. So with that being said, to all those who stayed on, who participated, thank you. Stay safe, be healthy, and think of those who have had a tough go of this, both physically and economically as well. And to that end, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. All right, second. Have it. Thank you all, everyone, and good night.
Thanks for attending the meeting. We hope it was interesting and informative.